At the center of the universe, at the border between the light and the dark, stands Castle Grayskull. For countless ages, the heroes of Grayskull have defended the universe against the forces of evil. Walk through the Hall of Living Pictures and learn the history and mystery of the Masters of the Universe. Dive deep into the mythology of Eternia, Etheria, and more. For those who know the stories of Grayskull will come the power. The power to be supreme. The power to be all-knowing. The power to be Legends of Grayskull.
Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us on episode 8 of Legends of Grayskull, the fan podcast where we discuss the history, the mystery, the magic, the mythology of He-Man, She-Ra, Eternia, Etheria, Primus, Nordor, Golden Books, Ladybird Books, UK Annuals, comics, mini-comics, everything you can think of with that Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, Princess of Power, He-Man logo. I'm Matthew Duch. I'm here today with Shawn Skavarna. Shawn, how are you?
I'm well. How are you,
Matthew? I am wonderful because we are here once again to talk some shop. And it's been a long time. It feels like a long time.
Best time of the week.
Yes.
Best time of the week.
We missed a week in there. That's the good thing about doing 2 episodes a week, though, because nobody noticed we missed a week. Because I just held one for our off week, and that was always the plan. But it felt a long time to us.
But don't think we don't love you guys that subscribe, because that's why we do it. We do it for you.
We'll hopefully give you at least 1 episode a week. That's our plan. So, quick shout out at the beginning here. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. Within the past month, we've over tripled our subscribers. I want to thank all of you guys. All you guys that joined our Facebook page. Everyone that supported us, left a comment, a like. Thank you. It means the world to us. I mean, this is very much us getting to geek out, but it's also nice to know that people like what we're saying and what we're doing. And Shawn hasn't been completely roasted by the community for not liking She-Ra.
Well, hey, I'm sure my time's coming. It's just we just talked She-Ra, so I'm sure they're going to be like, well, let's see what he says first. And then when they hear that episode, I'll be on next time, and it'll be like the cut scenes in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out where I look like this, and then the next time you see me, I got my eyes all swollen, and then the next time I got stitches. It'll be like that. So.
I like it. So we're here today to discuss our first Golden Book. It wasn't supposed to be our first Golden Book, but we lost our first Golden Book. That was one of our early technical issues. So this will be our first Golden Book, which is fun. But before we get to that, Shawn, you wanted to talk about some
bios.
Yeah, not quite bios, but
I'm sorry, not quite cardbacks. I should have said. I'm sorry. So in the last week. A little bit more than a week, I want to say, actually. There has been a slow unveiling of all of the Wave 1 and some of the Wave 2 Masters of the Universe Origins cardbacks that we're going to be seeing pretty soon.
Yes.
So, and I now I feel bad. I know Axel Gimenez is one of the artists, but there is another artist involved as well. Yeah. He's working with to create them.
I didn't look it up, so...
So we suck, but
our apologies.
I know he has been giving credit where credit is due. So if you follow him, you know there is another artist who's working with him to create the card backs, and it's interesting to see the new versus the old.
Well,
and Matt and I were talking a little bit about that in the last week. So we just want to touch base.
Yeah, and that's basically what it turned down to. Now, I think all the artwork on the new ones is fantastic. That goes without saying. That's not much of a discussion. I think universally there has not been one that's been revealed that everyone's like, oh, that stinks. Everyone's pretty much liked them. And it's great, you know, that the card back's going back to, you know, it's going to be in the traditional style. It's going to have the artwork at top, figures down below. You know, I love it. But Shawn brought up an interesting point to me, and he goes, you know, it's great artwork, but it doesn't really tell a story like the vintage did. And it's something that hadn't even crossed my mind. So why don't you take away that point, Shawn, since that was your... and I hope you can see this, right? I got He-Man's card back. We got the old and the new up is who we're starting with here.
I actually, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I saw Eamon O'Donoghue actually bring that up in one of the groups over the weekend. And when I looked at them, I'm like, he has a really good point. And I agree. There is something to be said about the storytelling then versus now. The fact that basically before Filmation, Masters relied heavily on mini comics and the cardback art and the box art to get across what their story and the brand was. And in this way, the Errol McCarthy art from back then, it conveyed certain things that it might be missing in the way that the new cardback art is. They're doing, it's more dynamic, crazy perspective artwork. But there is something to be said about what does that artwork represent when you tell the character's story. Right. And in the case of He-Man, you really can't say that doesn't tell the story. I mean, this is the worst one to have as the opening for me in that way where I'm talking about it, because it's like, it sums it up. I mean, you got Grayskull pretty much in the same perspective as Filmation when he would transform into He-Man. So there is that feeling of this kind of sums up the character, as well as the Errol McCarthy one summed it up by, you could see, you know, He-Man, he's somebody that he's a warrior, but he wants to live in peace on Eternia. There is the triumvirate of He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela, so you know who is with him, who's helping him defend Eternia. And he's right there, focal point, so you know this is the main guy. This is that guy. But you see how, you know, the other Man-at-Arms and Teela are given like secondary status, but they're not small enough to go, oh, they don't matter, they're not important. And there is this feeling of, he's got this like wistful thing of, you know, like he's looking out upon the plains and kind of having this is what I defend, this is my world, you know. And there's this like heroic statesman kind of vibe to him, whereas now it's more of like this in your face dramatic boom. Here's He-Man wielding the power sword, here's the power of Grayskull rippling through the sword and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to be honest, that was a great one to start showing the artwork on. And actually, I will say, Emiliano Santalucia, he actually did his own take on this as well. So if you're following him or not, it's worth looking at how he did his version. And he's not doing it to say he did it better. He's not doing it to say Axel Gimenez didn't knock it out of the park with what he did. But it is interesting to see, here's a veteran of the Masters community who he was very much heavy in the brand, especially in the 2000X era. And here he is showing off, this is how I would do it with just minor tweaking to the things.
Yeah, more
and it's still, it's a great, it's a great rendition no matter which way you go. But when we get into some of the other characters, like I know the one
we'll get there in a second.
Okay, you got them.
Yeah, I got them all. I got them all.
Okay,
and you're
cool.
You're able to see the pictures on your end, well, right? Okay.
Yep. I'm good.
Yeah, I just want to say it always amused me. I actually never saw the He-Man cardback art until the re-releases, that commemorative collection in like '99, I think it was. Because my figures, I got most of them secondhand, or I was too young to, you know, remember what was on the cardback. And I always found that vintage cardback of He-Man, I was always surprised when I finally saw it, how peaceful it is. Like, if anybody would think that he would have, like, I mean, he's the strongest man in the universe, and yet his cardback art is just him looking out over a plain, not even in Castle Grayskull in sight. Like, and that shows you where the brand was when this was created. I mean, there's no Adam. Grayskull isn't controlled by the good. I mean, it's just like, it's like from a whole different world, basically, this cardback. Now for the new He-Man, obviously he's still transforming from Adam. We know that because of the the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. So yeah, you've got basically the Battle Cat portion of his transformation sequence, which is a unique choice in that fact that, if it was me, if you're going to do this, have him standing square in front of Grayskull, sword up, right at that moment where he changes into He-Man. So you still got a little bit of that weird perspective in this one, but not as bad as the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one to me is my favorite. And honestly, I kind of like that they didn't do the raising the sword thing in this case. I like that it's not even like the other option I was thinking was he has the sword across his chest doing the I have the power pose. And I like that he did it where it's this, and it's a little, it's not the typical pose you'd think of, but from a design perspective, I like the lightning leads you into the design and the overall thing. And it's so like bright and energetic there. Then it makes sense, because if you did the I have the power, he's kind of like, there's still more landscape you can cover with the image, so he took up a decent amount of that real estate in the piece to make it work. So I think that's an effective one, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not bad. So then next we've got Skeletor. So I really love that vintage cardback art. Again, it's from a different story. It's got him lurking out around Grayskull when, Grayskull was still up for grabs. And it's a very demon-esque Skeletor, how he's hunched over, like just the way he's walking, like makes him look other than human. He's just and it's really effective. The night scene or the dusk scene outside of Grayskull, it's really creepy and everything. And then you go to the new one, and it's a cool looking Skeletor, no doubt. But here's where we've really got that perspective issue. I know what they were going for. They were going for that early mini comic, like he's doing stuff on the side of the active volcano. But because of perspective, it almost looks like he's gonna do like a backflop into like the lava, like it's a pool,
Yeah, yeah. This one I think I was not as impressed by for some reason, because the thing is, like, the He-Man one sums up who He-Man is to anybody, whether you're new or old to the line. You can kind of get the basic idea. This one for me just kind of is like, I get the ode. I get that it's an ode to the mini comics with that opening shot, but there's something about this one that just it's not grabbing me like He-Man. And it's almost like the case of the figures themselves. Like He-Man, I'm okay with for the most part. Skeletor, there's things about him that are driving me nuts. In this one, I'm not going to say Axel did anything bad in this case, but I just feel like there's something missing to making that look like Skeletor, like giving me a story about Skeletor. Just makes me kind of feel like he uses he uses volcanoes to do horrible things, maybe, or something. There's this element of that it's like it doesn't really. The original Errol McCarthy one sums up, he wants to get into Grayskull. That's Skeletor. He wants to use it for evil. Boom, done. So that's just,
I mean, even if you'd done that, Skeletor trying to, launching a magic attack at the drawbridge or something like that. Like, something to, like I said, give me a story, give me a scene, give me a, you as a kid, you take that vintage one and you go, well, I'm going to go grab my Skeletor and I'm going to have him sneak into Grayskull. It's like,
exactly,
it gives you that sense of a story. Whereas the new one, it's just like, oh, he's just hanging out by a volcano. He's going to go for a swim.
Especially, I just realized the drawbridge is down, so of course he's going to try to sneak into that thing at nighttime. I mean, geez, what is she thinking? Sorceress, close the door. Were you born in a barn?
All right, so now Man-at-Arms.
Man-at-Arms.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, it's a nicely rendered piece, but there is a lot of like, who is he? Like there's not much to be told other than he's a guy that can shoot things. Exactly.
I want to see that. I want to see the other half of this Origins card back. It's like, well, who's over there? What's going on?
That's the thing. We're getting a very, very, very meager glimpse of the land shark. So there's an element of, well, I wouldn't have minded seeing the land shark. And it is weird, like that was brought up as well. Like, this is basically another perspective of the land shark artwork.
Oh,
so
is
it's
that
kind of
what
like, well,
you know what? Honestly, I didn't even notice the land shark until just now, and I worked with these images all last night, and I saw them on Facebook before that, and I just now noticed the land shark shadow.
And that's part of why I brought that up to you. It's
so
like,
why didn't they pull that whole scene back and show the head of the land shark and somebody in the in the driver's seat, merman or Triclops or somebody?
I feel like for the back of the cards, it should be something like, again, Errol McCarthy right here. You see Man-at-Arms and Teela, and they're surveying the borders of the kingdom. I mean, it didn't need to be that crazy. And if they needed him to fight somebody, at least have the person in the shot with him, so you can actually see. Here's Duncan going up against somebody that you'd be like, oh crap, he's fighting. He's fighting Clawful, or oh god, he's up against Beast Man or whatever. And in this case, it's like there's a shadow of something on the ground indicating that there's danger, but it doesn't really do much more than it gives you a nod at the land shark artwork more than it's telling who Duncan or Man-at-Arms is as a character within the Masters universe.
I did like all the little beasties, like there's that little winged creature up there, like that's very reminiscent of the early box art, and that's cool. But it needed to tell more of a story. Now here's the one that drives me absolutely nuts, and that's
I'm just trying to get a closer look at her here. Yeah, this one
was like, what are they doing? Like, because we'll start with vintage. This is Evelyn for our audio listeners. The vintage one, it shows her using her crystal to spy on He-Man, and that's cool.
That was all that I needed.
Like, okay, so she's like down on the ground. She's casting a spell. She's an evil witch. She spies on them. Great, perfect. That's who she is. There's a couple beasties and stuff, and then that artwork is just. I don't know what she's doing. She's got her magic wand, which has some sort of spell effect. Then her left hand's open. It's got some sort of spell effect. And like there's a little like portal or something behind her.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like she portaled.
Did she come through the portal? Is she bringing someone through the portal? Is she opening the portal to go? What's she doing? What is going on in this picture? It's a weird perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if she like portaled in from the dark hemisphere into the light hemisphere, but there's a part of me that's just like, it doesn't really, it gives you the idea, okay, she's a sorcerer because you see the magical elements in like you said, the wand, her hand, but what else does it say? Like, at least with the original one, you're seeing she is someone spying on the good guy. That implies she's trying to figure out secrets about him and probably either use them to her advantage or take him back to Skeletor, and then he can do whatever he wants with this plan. In this one, she's just kind of there.
And if she teleported in, what's she doing there? There's no heroic warrior. There's no, stick a widget there with a cordite crystal, and she's going to grab the crystal. Now you got a story. Like...
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem on a lot of these is they're the only character on their card back, which some of that happened. Well, I don't know. Actually, I take that back. I don't think any of the vintage card backs had only one character on it. Except for Skeletor, he only had one, but he was around Grayskull. But I mean, like, for the most part, like, they always were fighting against somebody. They were using their powers. They were doing something. It showed you their place. Yeah. This is just like, here's a cool picture of Evelyn. Like...
Yeah,
it doesn't give kids a story at all.
From the art perspective, and I'm not even on par with Axel. I'm not even going to go there. But the thing is, I keep looking at the old card backs and going, I'd love to revisit that and do my own take of some of those things sometime, and just update them. Not even saying that what Errol McCarthy did was bad, but just kind of do my homage to them. And it's like, with what Axel did, it reminds me of when I do a commission and I'm just trying to show, here's a dynamic pose for the character to be in so you get a sense of them. But in the case of a card back, I feel like that Eamon knocked it out of the park with that little observation of, well, what's the story this image is trying to tell about the character? And this one to me is that one and Man at Arms for me, I think, are the two where I'm just kind of like, it's not really doing the job of telling anybody who doesn't know what's happening who this is. And then it's reliant on that sentence to kind of sum up who they are. But in my opinion, the artwork should have already done that heavy lifting.
Exactly.
The sentence should just summarize what you're looking at, you know? And so that one to me is definitely, I'm agreeing with you on that.
This one is the worst.
It's not doing it for me.
Now this one I like. We got Teela up next here. And here again, all of a sudden we've got other characters in here, and now you're telling a story. You know, her vintage one, honestly, I like this one better than her vintage one, because her vintage one is her spying on Beastman and Skeletor, which is fine. Again, that tells you a story. All those first 3 heroic warriors here in the vintage card backs are very much like sentries patrolling, spying, like they're there as the guardians of Eternia. So it works.
Yeah.
But in this new one, you've got her in the royal palace, King Randor, Queen Marlena on the throne, very mini comic, which I don't like, but you know. And then He-Man and some royal guards, and she's fighting off Merman. And okay, that's great. That tells me she's the captain of the royal guard, you know, and she'll be the first to jump in and protect her king and her queen. You know. Yeah.
The only thing that I find to be interesting from just a traditional level is, you know, they still use the snake armor around her head when she's doing that, compared to having her just look like normal Teela being the captain of the guard the way we're used to seeing her. And I like that. I dig that quite a lot, because it's actually putting that armor into use versus people just comparing it to, oh, well, it's the goddess then, or whatever.
Yeah, and she will be coming with the armor again. This figure will have the armor, so it works. I mean, and honestly, even that royal guard, I mean, they're a little bit just medieval, but I still kind of get a flair of the Mike Young guard in there, the blue one. So that's a neat little touch. Like I said, I don't like King Randor and Queen Marlena being the old white-haired couple, but yeah. It's early mini comics, so I'll allow it. But yeah, I think this one I think is my favorite out of the bunch. It does its job. It showcases the characters, and it gives you the scenario there. You know.
Yeah, it does.
So we got one more, and that is Beastman. And here again, I like the vintage card back. It's got him fighting He-Man. He-Man's got the axe and shield. And I like how they draw Beastman. Like, he's bigger, he's taller, he's bulkier. His arms are very simian and, longer. And it looks like they're just about to collide here and just go at it. Perfect. That's all you need. Beastman's the savage henchman. He will destroy you. And the new one I like. This is probably my second favorite, because it still doesn't have like a hero to oppose him, but it's got all these little creatures from the various mini comic appearances, and he's standing in the foreground, and it looks like he's commanding them, like, go attack, and they're all racing towards off screen there. So even though I still would have preferred to see a hero, like if you had Man at Arms stand there about to be like pounced on by all those things, it would have elevated it even more. But for me, you get a sense of who Beastman is. It's like, oh, look, he looks savage. He's ready for a fight, and he's getting all these beasts to go attack for him. Like, that's Beastman.
It sums him up, and that's all that you're asking for with this cardback artwork, as far as I'm concerned. It's, give your boom. Right. This is who the character is in a quick, like, I mean, nowadays it's even faster than it was for us as kids to look at this stuff and go, oh, well, this is what it is, because nowadays everybody has the ADD mentality and everything. So, like, Beastman having all the beasts around him, I'm good with that. That works. And that the perspective on that I like quite a lot. It gives him, like, Beastman's always looked at as lowly in comparison to Skeletor, but in this case, they're making it like, no, he's got cred. You know, like look at what he brings to the table here. So I like that you got the upshot of him, and there is this element of like, you know, wonder to how much stuff he can control using his powers. And I think, yeah, out of all of them, I'd say the He-Man one works for me, Teela, and this one, but Man-at-Arms and Evil Lyn to me are just, you know, they just don't.
They're lacking.
Say it the way the others do.
They just need that little bit more. So
yeah,
but it's still going to be cool to see all of those guys once this hits the shelves. I mean, that's going to be...
I agree.
It's going to be fun, that card back and everything else. So,
not bios, the card back. I still can't believe I said bios, but whatever.
It's been
we all
so
have our
long.
moments on this show.
Okay, so now for the fun part of the segment. This is actually Shawn's book, so I'll let him introduce it, but I'll hold it up because I don't think he has his physical copy with him.
Yeah, I don't have the physical copy. I just got my iPad. And I'll give credit where credit's due here. Vaults of Grayskull.co.uk if you want to check out stuff. If you don't have them handy, the old golden books and stuff, they are accessible there. I'm sure they're also available on He-Man.org, but this is where I found them. We today are going to talk time trouble.
And I will drop a link down below to Vaults of Grayskull so you can check them out since they help Shawn out.
Cool. Yeah, they're very good to me. I like them. And I'd say probably out of the golden books, this one is one of the most memorable covers of all time.
Everybody remembers it.
Everybody remembers He-Man trying to stop the clock on this one. And
let me do this. It's funny. I don't know how much our listeners know about the behind the scenes, but Shawn's my talking man, and I do a lot of the technical stuff. And I don't tell him a lot of what I'm going to do because I like to surprise him. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this right now. And we are going to take a look at time trouble.
Oh, look at you.
I know, right?
Yeah, so something cool about this one. I didn't realize that the interiors were... I remember these interiors. I just didn't realize it was time trouble for some reason. I don't remember, like... the big climactic moment, but there's moments in this book where it's like, this is yet another artist. His name is Luis Eduardo Barreto, who he went on, and I know he did DC artwork, and he was a professional comic book artist. He passed away some time ago, but he brings some good stuff to this book on top of the fact that it's such an iconic cover. And I felt like I came home again reading this. It was such a great thrill to read this one. And
it was written by Roger McKenzie, and it was published in 1984. So this is a little down the line, and this is the second wave of these golden super adventure books. So we're getting more filmation aspects in here, looks and backstories. And yeah, everybody remembers this book. There are so many iconic scenes in here, and that's why I figured, for those of you who are listening on our audio podcast, we're still going to describe what happens. But on our video part, we actually have I scanned in all the pages from Time Trouble from my personal copy, and I've got them up on screen here because I'm like, we have to see this. This is because there are so many iconic images. Like you said, everyone remembers this book, even if they don't remember it.
Nice.
So yeah,
Matt.
It took a little. And I like surprising Shawn on air when we just do stuff.
It's true. Yeah, I didn't realize you were going to go to that length, but I appreciate it because now I got one way or the other to look at it. And the artwork in this one, I love it. It's worth it's worth looking at it one way or the other. If you're looking at it in your own book, if you're looking at it on Vaults of Grayskull, if you're looking at it here, either way, anyway.
I will say this cover here, He-Man holding back the hand of the clock, and you can just see he's got his feet braced against the rim of the clock. His muscles are bulging. Skeletor's in the corner on the floor just laughing his butt off because he knows he's won.
Love it.
Like, this is... And the cover was still Earl Norem. One of his few that doesn't have his signature on it, but I did verify that it is his, thanks to Joe Amato. He's the resident art guy. He remembers all these artists. So I verified it with him because I wanted to get it right.
This is probably one of. I mean, Earl Norm had so many iconic images with Masters, but I guarantee you, if you say to a Masters fan, you know that cover where He-Man's trying to stop the clock, everybody will know what you're talking about.
You know, even the way the power sword's hanging there, and like there's the glint off it, and it looks like it's about to fall out. Like this, it just is so dynamic. There's so much energy. Now this has a little turn perspective on it, but it works here. Like. And I think it's Mad Duck Posters. Like they released a couple prints of golden covers. They did Secrets of the Dragon's Egg, and I know they did Power from the Sky. I don't think they've done this one, and they need to, because this would make an amazing print. They clean it up and they take the logos off and everything. Oh my god, this one I would buy. The other two were tempting, but I didn't pull the trigger. But this one I would buy in a heartbeat. This is iconic. I used to stare at this cover for hours as a kid. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and let's jump into the first couple pages.
Let's do it.
So we get a very stereotypical opening scene here. You know, Orko's doing a magic trick. Adam is lounging, Cringer's asleep, and Teela's giving him a hard time because he's just lazy. So.
And ironic that we just talked about the card backs with Teela in the snake armor, and here she is, snake armor Teela, being right here, front and center.
This Golden Book snake armor was always interesting. It's that very unique look. The headpiece is like a separate helmet, and it's not very snake-like, honestly.
It reminds me of Buzz Off.
Yeah, it's a very Buzz Off-like helmet. It's very unique. But yeah, so we've got pure filmation here. You know, Adam being lazy, Teela giving him a hard time. Perfect opening scene, you know.
One thing I'm going to say, and I know this is going to be something that throughout I'm going to be pointing out. I'm not the biggest Orko guy, but I adore this Orko.
Really?
The look of him. No, there is a. If you look at it at the at his scarf around his mouth, you'll see it reminds me of the Spider-Man eyes since the 90s, where the Spider-Man eyes will end up doing expressions for Spider-Man even though he's behind a mask. And in this, you'll notice there's this little fold in the scarf that will almost indicate what his mouth is doing while he's doing something else. I love the little hands he has in this. They're like, I know Filmation did that, but there's something about the way that these are drawn that make them so much more they're more compelling to look at in the panel when he's there. And there's just something about the overall look.
There's a little.
I just dig it. I
was just curious because it's very close to Filmation. But yeah, there's a little more detailing, a little bit more in the robes. A little extra line art. Creating some shadows and stuff. So
there's a little more character to him in this. Like I can almost hear it through his poses, through the way that that Eduardo Barreto did the art. There's certain things in his poses and the overall character. The I don't know. There's something in this that just it's one of my favorite interpretations of Orko in any way, shape, or form. And I rereading this, I was just like, this Orko makes me want to hug him. I love it. You know, there's something about it where, like, and because of what has to happen in this book, that's part of, I think, why it magnifies it for me, I think.
Yeah, and we got Teela's stare, and I always love this. She says, "Why can't you be more like He-Man? He's a real hero."
Yep, he's a real hero.
And she dumps him to the ground. I like that too. She just flips his hammock there, and it's like, get up.
And it's like, you realize I'm a prince. I could probably get you thrown in prison for that.
Right?
You know, like, you're assaulting royalty, basically. But he's just like, oh, whatever, just brush it off.
So we go to the next scene. She dumped at him. He's getting himself up off the ground. Cringer was woken up by that, and Orko's saying too bad she doesn't know the truth about lazy Prince Adam. And Adam's reminding Orko. I like this too. It's a little bit Mike Young Productions before Mike Young Productions.
I was thinking that.
He goes, "Remember, Orko, you're sworn to secrecy about my identity. Like, why are you talking about it here in public?"
Yeah, well, the beginning of that is, it's enough that you do. You know, like, I like that line. It's like, dude, you know more than anybody else, and I'm scared that you know this. You know. So, and then we get Zor flying in.
And, he's explaining who she is. And that tells you the time period this was released in. Filmation's just coming out. This is the Golden Books are making the transition from those early stories like Sword of Skeletor and Caverns of Fear and all that, where it was more the Alcala inspired, less, Secret Identity. So it's kind of bridging it here. And he draws his power sword, and by the power of Grayskull. And something about the transformation sequences in the books, it's almost as memorable as the Filmation series. Like, almost all the artists do a really good job of, a nice action pose, them both getting engulfed like that. It's really nicely done. Without having to spend, they're not going to spend 3 panels on it, but they always seem to do a pretty good job of making it look powerful.
Definitely. And then the next page, right there.
Yeah, and you've got the transformed with the sword in front of you. I have the power.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I like that the artist did the iconic pose in his own way. He didn't just copy Filmation, because there is something about the way he looks right here, where it's like Filmation, it's the I have the power, and here it's like he's braced himself, like, I'm ready for anything right now. And I love that it's like this battle ready, let's do this, let's go on this adventure kind of vibe. And when you see the hardness of him, like he's there, like he's a warrior, he's ready to fight.
It's a complete
and then when you see
change.
Yeah, well, that, and then when you see Orko and the like him being so surprised and he's knocking over his house of cards, this is part of why I love this Orko. When you see how exaggerated his movements are compared to how solid He-Man looks there, it really helps both of them have room on the page to go, well, He-Man's the warrior, he's going to take care of business. Orko's going to be funny, but he's going to be helpful as well. He's in it too, and I love it.
Yep, and then you got Battle Cat, He-Man. No, just Battle Cat and He-Man. They follow Zor to Grayskull, charge across the drawbridge, and enter the castle. And then I like how there's a little thought bubbles and word bubbles, here and there, in addition to the text, the block of text. You can tell that this guy's a comic book artist. He's taken these. He takes a standard Golden Book format where it's a picture and words and mixes it up. He's got multiple panels on a page still. It's not full comic book, but it's close. Same thing with that transformation of the sorceress, or Zor into the sorceress. Like, that's a really neat effect there, in showing the outline of Zor morphing into the sorceress. He shows the action without showing the action, without being able to devote panels to it. And I've always liked Battle Cat's dark armor here too. Like, the Golden Books usually have him in this darker, like, maroon armor instead of the bright red, and it works too. I like that.
Well, he does a really good job just with how Cringer and Battle Cat even move in the panels.
He's got a fierce energy. He's big, he's bulky, he's got those huge paws. I love the huge paws, and on top of it, he has him with the typical cat-like movements. He's not making him just like, here's a static pose. There's like this. The thing about this artist that I think above all is he brings a lot of actual motion and movement to these characters when he draws them, and that's a huge part of why when I look at this, I'm just grinning from ear to ear. Like, he hit it out of the park with this book for me. So absolutely. Yeah, so then we take the next page. This is cool. This is what people remember here, besides that cover. And I have a feeling you feel the same way. It's the sorceress magically conjures up the Eye of Eternia. It can reveal any foe in any dimension, even Skeletor, but it is not without risk. And I like He-Man's attitude here. He goes, to stop the Lord of Destruction, I would risk anything.
And this is my He-Man, like in that way. Like, Filmation never really went there, but this is mini comic He-Man in that way, where it's like, I'll get him, and I'll do whatever it takes. And he's got that like bluster to him in that way, and I love it.
And now here again, I can't imagine this is coincidence that we have. I know it didn't show up a lot, but we have an Eye of Eternia here, and then in the '87 movie. Oh, did you get a call?
At a phone, yeah. Okay. My wife just called, but I'm ignoring her so we can finish this.
Hear that, Mrs. Skavarna?
I'll be ignored later, I'm sure, but yeah, I'll call her back later.
But yeah, I can't believe that this is pure coincidence. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I'm trying to think. Actually, that's a good question for the Character Guide and World Compendium. Let's see if Eye of Eternia is in here. But yeah, this is the one big thing that everyone seems to remember about this, and especially the scenes coming up, but we'll wait on those for a minute. Eyes of Grayskull, Eyes of the Serpent, Eye of Eternia.
Nice, it's there?
Of course it is. Shawn, this thing has everything.
I just wasn't. There was something else you looked up the one day and it wasn't in there, so that's why.
Yeah, well, Castle Hellskull didn't have its own entry. It was just in the Anti-Eternia Bible. Oh, sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, actually, and even here, it only references the Golden Books. But it did... A little bit of trivia. The eye appeared on a 1987 Burger King Kids Meal Box illustration. Though there it was called the Evil Eye, and it was said to drain the sorceress's powers. So, I don't know. But yeah, I can't... Maybe it was just a pure coincidence, but the fact that... And I know it had a different function in the 87 movie where it opened and it granted... whoever stood in front of it, the powers of the cosmos. But it's just interesting that they both feature an Eye of Eternia.
Mm-hmm.
But so they're going to use this to find Skeletor, figure out what he's up to. And this next panel here where they're looking through the eye and they see Skeletor, Evelyn, Beastman, Merman all in front of the cosmic clock. Did you ever watch the old... Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Not the newer one, obviously, but the one that was out back. I don't know when it was made, but it was like the BBC made it, and like Aslan was a big puppet. You know what I'm?
It was like a PBS would air it and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw those. I don't remember them very well, but I remember I did watch when they were on.
Well, I was big into the Chronicles of Narnia. I read all the books in grade school. And there's the scene where Aslan's he's sacrificing himself to save the kids, And he gets to the evil witch's encampment, and like all those demons and everything are just like partying, and like there's music, they're playing the drums, and like it's just like this frenetic energy, and they're all cheering, and they're happy that they won. That's when I see this scene here, that's what I think of every time, because especially the poses, like Evelyn's doing this thing, Skeletor's like, yeah, he's like they're all just like cheering and like, yeah, we won. We've got the cosmic clock. Like, there's so much energy in this scene right here.
Yeah.
He-Man's mouth is agape. He's astonished. Sorcerer's like, look, his hands on the shoulder. Like, that whole scene there, like, the Sorcerer's saying it's worse than I dreamed. The Skeletor and his evil followers have passed into another dimension and have found the cosmic clock. And with it, the Lord of Destruction can control time. Like you said, this whole scene, it's got all this energy and movement. You can just hear them celebrating. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And then Skeletor and this is what Sorceress was talking about. She said it wasn't without risk. And it says, well, Skeletor can sense that he's being watched, and he looked back through the eye at the heroes. Like, that's how powerful Skeletor is.
That would be like if this was a movie or a show and he did that. That would be the moment as a kid you'd jump and go, "Oh my God, he saw them!" And because right after that, the next page goes and proves to you, yeah, there you go.
This is what people remember here: the tentacles coming out of the eye.
Yep.
Yeah, not only can he see him, but he's struck back with his evil magic, and he sends these green, smoky, gooey tendrils out to grab everybody. And Sorceress is putting up a shield, and He-Man whips out his sword, and Battle Cat's plowing, and and I like this too. What he did in in a lot of the book, here's the first page that really jumped out at me. Like you said, he shows so much action. If you look at this panel, like He-Man's foot and arm are like coming out of the panel. Like he didn't confine himself to the panel. There's little parts where if they're doing something really powerful, they'll step out, or like there's so much happening. They're so big that they're actually breaking through the panel. Like
they cannot be contained. Yeah, no, and
yeah.
I know there has been many artists that have done the mini or the golden books, not the mini comics.
Yeah.
And like some of them, I remember them because of just their line work and the way that they render a lot of the characters. Some of them I was like, why did they hire this guy?
Right.
Because there are a few
some.
where I was like, I got nothing on why this guy's drawing this. It doesn't look right to me at all. This is the one where it's like the perfect mesh between the actual illustration and animation.
Right.
Because there's every page, there's something in it that has a movement where you can just feel the next step that's about to happen, and your mind's already transmitting it while you're looking at the panel in front of you.
Yeah, you don't need to see everything that happens, you can tell it. And this is what we're talking about. If you've listened to our multiverse reviews, this is like the complete opposite of that, where it's like that had stuff happening between panels and you're going like, well, what happened? This is like you can jump from this scene to scene and your mind's filling in the blanks. You can tell that they're fighting, It works perfectly. Him and Fred Carrillo, he's the other one. He did Magic Mirrors and a bunch of others. And he did those big illustrated, the giant books. He's another one that really got it. I got them back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had them as a kid. I don't know if I still do anywhere. And I figure I'm just going to hit eBay and get those one of these days because I love those things as a kid.
Those are awesome. But yeah, and then so on the next page there, we got He-Man and Battle Cat fighting, and you just get it. And he goes in. I like how he switches back and forth between like word bubbles and text. Whenever he has something really important to say, and just He-Man and Battle Cat just slicing. You see the motion of the sword, the motion line, the motion of the paws, and I'm coming, sorceress. Hold on for just a moment longer. You can feel the desperation as they're trying to get over to her, and. But they're too late, and this panel here always freaked me out as a kid, like her getting sucked into the Eye of Eternia. It's right there with Stanley getting sucked into the door in the House of Shikoti. Like
exactly.
You're like, oh my god. And even He-Man, no, I have failed, Battle Cat. She is gone.
Yeah. You
can just feel the loss. Like, oh my, we tried and we just couldn't do it. These are the scenes everybody remembers, is those tentacles and the sorceress. And so then, of course, he does the only thing he can do. He hightails it to find the only other magic user he knows.
And I like this. I mean, any time that they made Orko have to step up is usually like Lessons, for instance, Mike Young Productions. It's like any time that you have to get the guy who always would say, I'm a screw up. You don't want to trust me to do this. Right. And then usually the hero's like, but I believe in you. I don't care how many times I've seen that anywhere. It gets me every damn time.
Absolutely.
And this is that moment for Orko in this book. I love it. I absolutely love it. And here's another example. Look at the illustration where the cards are all falling down. It's the one in the bottom. And this is my Orko.
Yeah.
There's like in Filmation there would just be the dot for the eyes and all that kind of stuff. And here you're actually getting like a full iris around the pupil and stuff like that. And there's like this childishness about him that to me is just endearing versus a lot of people might think of him as annoying or this or that. For me, this Orko would just, if he showed up anywhere, I'd be like, no, I like this guy. I like him. He looks like a sweetheart. I just think he's great. So.
And so He-Man explains, you're our only hope. We need magic here. And he brought the Eye of Eternia with him. And then next page here, he asks Orko, can you work this? Orko's hesitant, and wouldn't you rather have me pull a rabbit from a helmet?
That's more my style.
Yeah, I like that. And like all the warriors are there, and we got a nice blend here. Randor and Marlena, more so on the last page you saw them, but they look a little bit older, but they're more Filmation-y. I like this better than those white-haired grandma and grandpa Randor and Marlena, because like we've said in previous episodes, like they're basically our age-ish, a little older, and Shawn's a little white-haired, but
I'm
still
plenty
good.
white-haired.
but not like that. Not like, I mean, those first.
I don't look like I'm gonna speak like this just yet.
Yeah, exactly.
I like this too because in 2 or 3 panels they're giving Orko the stakes.
Yeah.
And so it's like no pressure,
right?
But because like in the next panel, the sorceress needs your help. We must not let her down. And then I like Orko. Orko sounds like me anytime I have to rise to the challenge.
Yeah.
Here goes nothing. And I like at Battle Cat. Here goes everything.
Yeah.
And it's like no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, and I even like how it's not like he activates the Eye of Eternia, he does what he needs to, but like the heroic warriors are like sucked into it. Like it's not even like it's just like here we go. Except for Stratos, like he managed to get into a flying pose. He's like, oh, I do this all the time. Don't worry.
I'm gonna look proper.
Well, that's it. Like it's the other ones are like, whoa, what's going on? We're floating, but like Stratos is like, yeah, okay, this is my natural pose. It works. It's like he put a little thought into him,
The other thing too about the art in here is there is not, and I'm looking just to double check real quick, there is not a single page in this book that does not have a moment where the artist wants to convey any sense of action one way or the other. Because I'm looking at this going, this might be the one page where there's not much, and then it's like, no, at the bottom, they're all getting sucked into the thing. There's still like crazy action.
Yeah, and you got the comic book sound effects of Thoom,
Thoom, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which really comes up in a minute here and is a really awesome scene. And I like that they all land in front of the cosmic clock there. All the evil warriors are waiting for him. They're ready for battle. Skeletor's pointing stabbing staff. He-Man comes down with sword drawn. Battle Cat's ready to go. I mean, it's just like you can just picture the tension. You're like, okay, here we go. This is it.
And this would be the moment if it was in Filmation that the theme song would be kicking in like crazy, and you'd be like, yeah, something's about to happen.
Yep.
And then
Skeletor.
This 2-page spread. Oh, what? Okay, sorry.
Well, I just like Sorceress is in a glass prison there, and too late, He-Man. We have got the Sorceress in the cosmic clock, and you can just hear that Filmation laugh. You do a better job of it than me.
And then this and then next
that 2-page spread where they just go to battle, and this is where the Golden Books could get away with what Filmation couldn't, because there's not a single punch on that page. There's no contact. There's no weapons being used. I did quotation marks in the air. There's no weapons being used to hit anybody. It's all implied. And so that's where these books, it's the same action as Filmation, but they were able to get away with it because they didn't have to show the hits. Like you see Beastman flying back and Man-at-Arms holding the mace, but the mace never hit him. You never see the mace hitting him. So
not touching.
Even Merman and Stratos, like Stratos is about to bring his fist down and just bonk him, but he's not. It's just up here. That's it. This is where the Golden Books had the leeway where they could show the implied action. This is He-Man punching the camera. Like every time He-Man punched the camera, he was punching somebody, but they could not even they couldn't show that much. Like they couldn't show him swinging towards somebody. But here it's just Stratos holding his fist above Merman's head, like, and I like it's like the Sorceress. I'm gonna read this whole thing because it's awesome. The Sorceress spoke directly into He-Man's mind. You must stop Skeletor. If the cosmic clock strikes 12, it will give the Dark Lord the power to control time. If that happens, we are all doomed. And so the battle began.
And you can't tell me that the He-Man song would not be going crazy during this part. I mean, I can't say enough about this artist. Yeah. The amount of visuals he put into this 2-page spread just to show the battle beginning. Right. And even like the poses he used. Like I love how it's like usually you'd see He-Man lunging towards Skeletor, and Skeletor would be the one holding his ground. I like in this one, they just got out of this, they just got sucked through the Eye of Eternia. He's landing there, and I love the idea that Skeletor is on him for the first time because he's about to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and Evelyn casting the magic in the background. Like, the whole thing's just full of life and energy.
And that Man-at-Arms pose.
Yeah.
I love that he's just going in there swinging,
Well, yeah,
and he's like lunging.
Well, it looks like he just did the uppercut with the mace, and now he's like about to come down with his right fist afterwards. Like boom, boom. You know, it's like I'm not even giving you a chance to get up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then that takes us to the next page. As the fight raged on, the cosmic clock began to chime, and you got those comic book, 60s Batman, sound effects. That's bong, bong.
Bong, bong.
There's two on, Evelyn and Tila. There's three, bong, bong, bong. Four, oh, yeah, and they actually spell that 3, 4, 5. Merman and Beastman. Like, you get the whole battle's raging. It's just bong, bong, bong. And it's like they're gaining the upper hand, but as you see, it's 1, 2, we're up to 8 on that page, and then Battle Cat frees the sorceress from the cage. Bong, bong. And I also like how Battle Cat's the one who has to open the door for the one guy without opposable thumbs, and he's Battle Cat, open that cage. All right. So he just rips it open. But yeah, so now you're up to 10 bongs, and that sounded wrong.
Well, it is Roger Sweet. That is a part of the lines of bong. Yeah. We got to go there.
So you're up to 10 chimes, and you see them on the page with the fight, and you just feel it. Like, this is the point where the He-Man theme would taper off, and it'd be replaced with, like, one of the Skeletor themes. One of the Doom and Gloom, and you just hear the bong, bong. He-Man and Skeletor are locked, they're in the background there of the sorceress, and they're just locked into combat, neither gaining the upper hand. Because Skeletor's not even trying to win. He doesn't need to defeat He-Man right now. He just needs 2 more seconds. That's all he needs,
Yeah.
That takes us to the next page here. The 11th chime, the bong. You have lost, He-Man. When the cosmic clock strikes but once more, I will control time, and all Eternia will feel my fury. And that's that moment where He-Man just gets that, like you've always talked about, He-Man gets that little extra reserve. He's like, I'm going to lose. And he just gets that extra little bit of power. And he just knocks Skeletor right on his butt. Look at that. That head's whipped back. He's flying. He lost the Havoc staff, And then He-Man just never. And he grabs at the pendulum. And you can see him here again. He goes out of the page, out of the panel, bracing himself with that one foot. And you can just feel the strain and the energy as he tries to hold that pendulum back. Which, yes, when we actually get to it, it's the pendulum, not the clock hand like on the front. But you know what? It's comic books. What happens on the cover never happens in the story. But yeah, these 2 pages right here. I don't even know if you have anything else to say. I'm sorry, I'm kind of over.
No,
talking
honestly,
you here.
like for me, this sequence would have been like Diamond Ray of Disappearance, where you got the theme song, and then the moment the He-Man disappears, trying to break the diamond, the music dips down, and you have that, like that like dramatic pause, and then that would be like. This pose would be that moment where
it starts to swell up again.
And then you hear doo doo doo, and then that's when he's like trying to stop the pendulum, and then bam,
and then boom,
he blows the roof off the joint.
And I love it. You have him grabbing the pendulum, and then the whole next page is just an explosion. It's just like boom, boom.
Yeah,
terrible explosion. The heroes lost sight of each other and their enemies, and so you're just what? Everyone's dead, and then you go to the next page. And I like that he didn't even try and they're okay. Like that whole page is just an explosion. Like every shit's destroyed. And then the next page is when we see Orko goes, well, it's a good thing I kept an eye on you. That's Orko I like. That's good writing right there. Those are those little chuckles when done right. It's like it's not overwhelming, it's not silly, it doesn't make you feel like they're talking down to you. It's just good little breaking the tension moments. That's how it's done right. So Orko was watching him through the eye the whole time, and he pulled them all back out at the last second there, and saved them. So and then we find out that while they were gone, Orko also was able to perfect that trick he'd been working on the whole book of trying to make the house of cards float in the air. So
and this is probably my favorite actual image of him in the entire book. I don't know why. I love that.
Look at what I did.
It reminds me of my son who's 3. I did it. You know, he has that kind of thing going on, and I've always loved that image, but even now, there's more to it now that I have a son, and he reminds me of the same size of him.
Then just like a kid, he takes a bow in front of it and he bumps into him.
Yeah,
and that leads to our last panel here, where all the cards fall on him, and and He-Man takes a little jab at him, a little lighthearted joking jab. So the great magician cannot even do a simple card trick.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in light of Orko's recent display of magical skill, everyone found this quite amusing. So a typical Filmation ending, everyone put their heads back and
yeah, basically. But
it's a good story. I mean, this is very much a Filmation-y Golden Book. Like this is Curse of the Spellstone for Golden Books.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was almost defeated, he rose up, nice, well written Orko. You know, he hits the right beats, and there's a good lesson in there for kids. It's they don't have a moral at the end, but it's that little lesson. Like, keep trying, keep practicing. You'll get it. You'll be able to do great things. And then I put the back cover in there just because it shows that these are the 2 new titles, Mask of Evil and Time Trouble. And Sword of Skeletor, Caverns of Fear, The Trap, and Thief of Castle Grayskull were the first wave of these books. And those are set in a very different period of He-Man. So
those were more mini comic-esque.
So these are the first 2 that came out that were, leaning more towards this mainstream approach, and I think they nailed it. Like, this is, honestly, I'll just jump right in my rating right now. 10 out of 10. There is nothing I would change about this book. There's no down spot to me. It's action all the way through. Good story, good characterization. 10 out of 10. This is my first thing I think we've reviewed that I've given a perfect score to, and I have no qualms about that.
I want to give it an 11. No, honestly,
you always have to show me up.
No, I'm not. This is a 10 out of 10 for me too, because from an art perspective, this one has me engaged every page, and it's really impressive that with how art and everything in media has gone since we were kids, this one still captivates me on every page. And I try to give artists their due when I read stuff, but there's certain times where I'm just reading and then I go through the book. This one, even now, I'll probably still revisit this later tonight or tomorrow and just look through it again and just be in awe of the line work, the motion that they managed to do with the figures, the overall designs of the pages.
Even the coloring, honestly. Usually the coloring in this jumps around. You'll get at least one page where, someone's off model or off color, It doesn't happen here. There is
all consistent.
There is so much effort put into this art that it holds up. It's his style. It's not Filmation. It's not quite, anything else. It's his style. But he did it in a way where everybody's recognizable. Everyone was drawn with love. You can tell he actually tried with this. Whereas some of these, it's good story, but you can tell the artist was just work for hire. He's like, okay, I get this book done and I get a paycheck.
Yeah.
This one you can tell he's like, well, I'm doing a book here. I want to do, I don't know where this lands in his career. I probably should have looked that up a little closer because you said he worked for DC Comics. I don't know if this was his early stuff where he's like, well, I need to take every opportunity I can to prove myself. Or just because he is a professional, he's like, well, I'm not going to phone it in. This is my job. I need to get it love.
I feel like in this case, he's not somebody that phoned it in at all.
No, I think either way, he didn't phone it in.
Yeah, no, and I feel like it's saying, it speaks volumes of what he brought to the book. He didn't just go in there as a hired gun just to do something and collect a paycheck. When you look at the way that the body posturing is and the actual body language of these figures, there's no page in this that you don't see He-Man in a way where he's either being heroic, being someone who's trying to take care of business, or even when he goes to Orko for help,
Right.
there's this urgency to it. It's not just oh, hey, Orko, do you have a moment? It's like, we need your help now, and he's like holding out his hand to him and all that stuff. Like, we gotta get this done.
Absolutely.
And everybody, there's this feeling when you look at their characters, there's a story that he tells with the just that alone, with the body language that he invoked. And I can't get enough of how he put motion into these pages in some way, shape, or form to make your eye not only read it, but also to give you that sense of these are characters that they're not just static on the page. They're alive and they're coming out just the way that the figures back in the day, like if you put them next to G.I. Joe or Star Wars figures, there was no way around it. He-Man was going to trounce them. Like that figure was powerful. He did the same thing with the art in this for me. And
this is,
if
this is, you could take all the words out of here and just show somebody this art, and they would be able to tell you what happened in this story. And that's great. That's how art's supposed to be. That's how books are supposed, these picture books, that's how comic books are supposed to be. You shouldn't have to rely on the words,
Exactly. And it's funny because we were just talking about the differences between the old and the new with the cardbacks. And this is a perfect example of, the old way really does work. Like it really, it still has so much passion and it has so much energy if you're going to the right stuff. Like there are definitely artists that do some of the golden books where, like I said, I'm like, why did they pick this guy to draw this issue or whatever? But for the most part, they got some good illustration artists for these things.
Where the story's just not as strong. Like The Trap, for instance, that's decent art, but it's a weak story. Like there's just not much there. So, but this is that perfect mix of great story and great art, well colored, well done, and they don't match up perfect. They're not quite Filmation, they're not. They're kind of their own thing. They're leaning more towards Filmation, but like I said, Battlecat's got darker armor. Man-at-Arms, only half of his armor is covered, so it's a mix. It's a mix, but it's its own thing, and that's the biggest thing. Just make it your own. If you're going to tell a new story, make it your own. You don't have to copy the past, but you've got to respect it, and you got to put solid effort into it.
Well, the thing that I like a lot about the art as well is it almost reminds me of a hybrid between Filmation and comic art. And it's like if they did back in those days, like if Ralph Bakshi or someone like that from an animation perspective, or even Don Bluth would have had a chance to go, okay, I got the license for Masters. Here's what I do. I could honestly see them looking identical to that. And that would have still been such a great way to showcase those figures and those characters. It's like Filmation definitely, I know that's the gold standard for that era, but these for me are like, this is almost like, it's almost Filmation meets Mike Young meets somebody like I said, Don Bluth or something, where it's got this great mix of all of these things that work, and it still holds up even in 2020.
Absolutely.
Just like it did in 1984, I think you said, right?
1984 this one came out. So
yeah, so there you go.
And I had this out the other night because I was rereading it myself and everything, and then I was preparing to scan all the pages. And I left it on the table while I went to go make dinner, and my son saw it on the table. He was like, "Hey, is it okay if I read this?" I go, "Sure, go for it." He's 8. He reads on his own. He's a really good reader, actually. And he just goes and he just sits down with it, and I just see him. He's like this the whole time. He's just like he never stopped. I mean, it's not a long story. He reads longer. He's in the chapter books already. But like, just you could tell his attention was just like sucked into it, and I have to imagine that's how I looked, because this is one of my most read stories. When I was a kid, I would always pull this one out because it's so impressive. And then when he got done with it, he goes, "Hey, do you have any other books any other Masters books I could read?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I pull out my box with everything in there, and he picks out Secret of the Dragon's Egg and Mask of Evil, and he sits there and he reads through both of those one after another. It's like there's something here. There's like I've said before, there's something primal about Masters of the Universe. I'm not the only one who said it. A lot of people said it. I'm not trying to say I'm I know something everyone else doesn't, but every time kids get exposed to this, they are drawn to it. There is something primal. There is something just gravitating about this that just sucks them in. The characters, the archetypes, and that's the thing where even though I don't care for bringing it all back around to beginning, even though I don't care for origins and where they're going, if it's presented right, I think the kids will be sucked in by it because things have changed, obviously, technologically and everything else, but there are certain things that are just, they're timeless. And there's something about Masters that at its heart is timeless when it's done right. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think, no matter what era of what century you're in or whatever, there's always going to be an element of, if you go back to the idea of a warrior or a knight, and he's going up against a greater evil, or he's going up against an evil wizard or a dragon or whatever, there's always this easiness of telling that story of saying, here's this guy going up against this big deal or this big threat, or it's a heroic adventure or whatever. What kid doesn't want to imagine themselves along for the ride on this crazy adventure journey with a hero trying to set something right again, or get something back that was stolen, or whatever the premise of it is? But these are all innate things that through the stories that other brands have told, they're still prevalent. It's in the bloodline of a lot of this stuff.
Right.
And this story kind of exemplifies that.
Absolutely.
To me. It's a simple story, but it's the whole, good versus evil. Evil's already one-upped good here.
Yep.
Good has to go in and right the wrongs. And I mean, it speaks to something deep in me, and it always has. And it's nice to see that a new generation might be able to embrace it and see what we loved.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and that's not just looking at it through kids' eyes. I was legitimately entranced by this when I read it the other night. I read it straight through. I was gripped. Even knowing what's going to happen, I was gripped. Like Shawn said. We've said it to death already. But yeah, that is as a 34-year-old man, I can still sit here and be intrigued by this book while I read it.
As a 41-year-old, it did it for me.
All right, Grandpa.
With gray,
okay, Boomer.
With plenty of gray.
Calm down. All right, so I think that about wraps up that discussion. This is the time. Please like, share, subscribe. Help us beat this YouTube algorithm so we get to more people. Hit all those buttons down below. They're down there. Hit that bell so you know when a new episode premieres. Or, we're going to start going live here once in a while. By the time this episode airs, we'll already have done one. Ooh, time travel. Because I've got an envelope that I'm going to open live. But by the time this episode premieres, that'll already be up there. So go check it out if you didn't. Check out the rerun if you haven't seen this. So that's going to be fun. That's some animation cells that I have no idea what's in that envelope. Go ahead and visit Shawn's Caverna. Links down below. I'm going to put Vaults of Grayskull down below. Check that out. It's got It's got lots of great stories. You can read them online if you don't want to track down the books. Yep. But honestly, most of these books, with the exception of a few, are pretty affordable on eBay and elsewhere. I don't think, besides, like 3 or 4, there's not many that are going for more than $5 a piece, which isn't terrible, I don't think, even though
it's a good reference to have the Vaults of Grayskull. But yeah, I gotta get the hard copies in my hand too, because something about that.
Of course, it only cost $1.95 back in the day, but Go ahead and join our Facebook page. We got a little group there where we keep you up to date. New episodes are coming. We have some discussions, some good members. Go ahead, just join everything. Everything down below. Do it. Do it now.
Do it.
I'm watching you. Don't just sit there
Do
and
it.
Don't hit that. Don't hit that stop button. Stop that. No. Shawn, anything you got?
I'm good. I'm happy. I love that this book made me smile. I'm grinning from ear to ear, and it's not because I'm just trying to be nice. It genuinely got me. Like, I feel like a kid again looking at that thing. It's such a great feeling.
Yes, it absolutely holds up. So go check it out if you haven't. Check out if you haven't checked out Mask of Evil in a while. Check out that one. That's another good one. And until next time.
Until next time.